What's up, everyone? This is week 45 of the Tesla Beat podcast. Sorry, I want to blame Joe for our hiatus. Just kidding.
We're back, baby.
We're back. So yeah, we've just had 2 incredibly busy weeks. One, obviously, we released the podcast already. We spent some time with Kimball Musk in his beautiful restaurant in Boulder, Colorado, which was super, super exciting. Had a little bit over an hour with him. And then last week, I was in Los Angeles picking up my Cybertruck with black digital camo. So it just kind of has been a pretty busy couple weeks. So sorry we could not make those shows the past couple weeks, but we are back and we will be here every Friday at 8 a.m. So thank you for holding out for us and patiently waiting as we are obviously out there like just creating content and stuff. So this week, Alexandra couldn't make it, and Jeff should be joining us potentially later in the episode. But we have our regular special guest, Hans. How's it going, Hans?
Great, man. And yeah, I'm excited to see everything that you've got coming on the Cybertruck, because that looks like just a blast. And I'm sure that pretty much the entire audience is completely jealous.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting because I know Joe could he gets this, but like we all know that the candle being lit for the Cybertruck content is just 4 or 5 months, maybe max more. And you are starting to see part of that wear off. I mean, with this wrap that I have, it kind of rekindled that a little bit. But I mean, we'll get into this, but Tesla's starting to put 370 freaking trucks out a day now or something. And so the production's ramping fast. And so it will be, so just the Cybertruck content in itself is just really fun and enjoyable. But at the same time, it's a very limited time in some ways and not, right? I mean, this is going to be, hopefully at some point they can release FSD and potentially some other really cool software updates to, depending on, what they have under their sleeve and stuff. So but obviously, what are you guys here for? You are here for weekly news. So we're going to jump into this. And funny enough, there was some additional news that broke this morning. So shout out to Sawyer. But let's just get into Cybertruck. We had announcement, really 2 announcements this week. One from Cybertruck itself, the Tesla team, saying, hey, we've produced over 1,000 Cybertrucks worth of 4680 cells. So that's crazy. They're literally making, 1,000 batteries a week now, which is just a crazy run rate of 52,000 batteries a year so far. And we know
1,000 packs, you mean?
1,000 battery packs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's 52,000 trucks that they're potentially at right now, at least from a battery pack perspective, not quite. They may even actually be further on the truck size, but either way, Sawyer also mentioned, and Elon did respond to this saying like production is ramping, but a record 370 Cybertrucks spotted at Giga Texas. And so Cybertruck is here. It's coming. I mean, we've all seen the insane amount of celebrities that are also getting this and just doing the free advertising for it. I personally have one. Joe has configured his, so he's going to be slowly getting them. And then Hans, I forgot. Do you have one on order? Are you going to be getting one or?
Eventually, I hope to, but mine is way deep in the queue, so I'm not expecting anything anytime soon.
Yeah.
I had made a post about like how with this vehicle, you don't really see celebrities, like even with the Hummer EV, like you see people posting that they got their Cybertruck and all kinds of stuff, all kinds of celebrities and things like that rolling around with it. You didn't really see that with any other EVs. Like even when somebody buys a Bugatti, they're not really like, hey, look at my, you know what I mean? Like this is like a crazy phenomenon that Elon will never get his apologies due for this truck. But I mean, everybody thought it was going to flop and nobody liked it, and here we are.
And all that earned media, shame. Just I hate it when people advertise Tesla for free. It's the worst.
Speaking of that, and we'll get into that. Well, I don't actually. Yeah, we made. Yeah, I don't think we'll get into this. But I did do. There was an article out last night. It's just funny how, Rivian owners, Ford owners are all going to be posting photos of their cars, with the Cybertruck, their cars, and the Tesla supercharger is going to be in back, and so it's going to become like this. You almost are going to think like charging is going to be synonymous with Tesla, or more importantly, like just where you go to charge your car is just going to be a Tesla supercharger. So, but yeah, all of that free advertising. And one thing that's interesting too, Joe, you brought up a great point about just not only the free advertising, but yeah, most people, typically when you'll see someone in a Bugatti, they won't post a video of them getting the Bugatti. It'll be them rolling into some really nice event like the Oscars or something else. You don't see it happening of like, hey, look at what I got. Elon, you're crazy. I can't believe this is happening. So pretty incredible on that end, just to see the amount of love that this truck is getting, the amount of people that actually want this truck to do well. And, truly it is the future of what a vehicle should be. So, but quickly going back to, again, I'm going to flash this up because I know we went on that tangent. So 1,000 battery packs per week at Giga Texas, and 370 Cybertrucks spotted at Giga Texas yesterday. But what are your thoughts on this production? Did you think that they were going to ramp this fast? Did you think that they were going to, it was going to be a quick, a little bit slower trend into it? Or what were you thinking? Or is this not surprising at all?
I would say that this is probably roughly on trend. If you look at 1,000 vehicles a week, it took Model 3 production quite a while to reach, to ramp up all the way to, they typically use 5,000 vehicles per week as the threshold that they would mark as this is volume production. And so for them to have 1,000 packs per week right now, that's, 140 some odd Cybertrucks per day, 7 days a week. If they're running, I don't know if they're running 7-day shifts or if they're just doing 5. At this stage in the ramp, it wouldn't surprise me if they were just doing 5. And so then that'd be 200 Cybertrucks a day on average that they can produce. Now, Drew has definitely said that they're ahead in the 4680 production of where the Cybertruck production is, and they're able to have some buffer there. And so they're probably not producing 1,000 Cybertrucks a day, or 1,000 Cybertrucks per week on average yet from Giga Texas, but they're definitely ramping, and they're ramping quickly. And I'll be very excited to try and see how that battery production progresses here, because we do know that they switched over here recently. They switched over here recently to producing 100% of the Cybertruck cells. And so there was a little bit of delay in the growth of cell production at Giga Texas. And now it looks like they're re-ramping that. And their ability now to have all of those lines producing cells for the Cybertruck should mean that we're able to see, it'll be curious to see how long does it take for us to get the next update where we see, hey, 2,000 packs per week out of cell production, 3,000 packs. But I think the trajectory that we're on right now looks like we are probably headed towards that 5,000 Cybertrucks per week number, probably quicker than most people suggested, definitely slower than, there's always that really optimistic group of, hyperboles that think, hey, we're going to be producing 1 million Cybertrucks this year. As like, probably not. But I would be, I think it's probably good progress towards Elon's stated goal of, I think he said, ramping up to around 250,000 vehicles per year by the middle of 2025. If you kind of extrapolate his 18-month time frame out there. And it looks like we are very well on track with that timeline. And so, I would say that I'm pleased, not super surprised, not disappointed at this point, because it looks like we're on trend with what Elon has been saying, which is, it's nice that it doesn't feel like we're really behind his optimistic, like his time frame doesn't feel like it's an optimistic, unrealistic thing at this point.
Joe, did you have some thoughts?
No, I agree with all of that. It's just we're at a really cool inflection point. What I noticed in terms of battery production from Tesla versus units that they put out. And I know that if Jeff was here, he would probably comment on, you know what I mean, like that variance in those weeks. But I think for right now, especially heading into summer, we know it's going to be like a pretty crazy summer when you're looking at like all of the Cybertrucks that are out. I mean, it's just wild to me. I think about this all the time. It's wild to me how the Hummer EV was made like a year and a half, probably 2 years prior to the Cybertruck, and you still see more Cybertrucks than you do of the Hummer EV. And that to me is crazy. I actually see more Cybertrucks than I do of the Lightning in my area. So that's like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty phenomenal to when you think about this and you think about like Tesla as a whole. Like they make things for mass production. They're not making them for just like a limited run. You know what I mean? I originally thought they might do something because the truck seems so special, but to Tesla, it's like, no, let's just make it for everybody. You know what I mean? Like these are like the Yeezy of trucks. You know what I'm saying? Like give everybody a pair. And I think like we need to start thinking about that in terms of like the Tesla bot and things like that they're looking at for the future. These are things that they're just gonna be making a ton of for as long as they can, and that's just Tesla's MO.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that we've heard from a lot of commentators, hey, how come Tesla's like resting on their laurels or asleep at the wheel? How come they let GM and Ford beat them to the electric truck market? You know, how come they let Rivian take the market, quote
Crazy.
unquote? And, you know, what we will see, like this is inevitable from this point forward based on Jeff's area of expertise, which is COGS. Like Tesla is going to win the truck market based on COGS, which means they can offer more value to the same customer for less money. And so they didn't just want to put a truck out there for putting a truck out there's sake. They're not trying to just fill a vehicle segment so that they can check a box. They want to make the best electric pickup that can be made from a value standpoint. And the fact that it's ridiculous and insane looking and polarizing and all that stuff is just kind of like icing on top of the cake. At the end of the day, they are doing this with a platform architecture that is incredibly scalable. And so, you know, the Cybertruck is going to sell more units than all those other trucks combined in a very short order. Just like, you know, the Model Y is now the best-selling SUV of any type in the world, the Cybertruck potentially has a path to being that for trucks over the long run. But even if it's only half of the best-selling truck in the world, that's still orders of magnitude more than any other EV truck that's on the market. And so, you know, this is just basically a game over scenario that we get to watch from the sidelines, you know, for the next 18 months as it plays out. But it's game set match already. We know it's how it's going to play out.
Yeah, it's I mean, you bring up some amazing points about the the way the media, or more importantly, just yeah, I would say media and other people, I would say just even journalists or just, you know, even EV enthusiasts were saying, yeah, like why is Tesla letting Ford and Rivian eat their lunch, right? And I think, you know, we know that these two variants will come out potentially at 60 and 80,000 once the Foundation series is done. And Jeff would know better on this, but what if there's a world where you get this truck down to $50,000, even $45,000, and you are talking, I mean, for me, right? So I have the dual motor, and this truck, if you got this thing down to $50,000, this truck it feels like the efficiency that I get, it feels like driving a Model Y. I mean, like I'm driving over 360 miles down to down to Los Angeles, and I'm stopping once. I drove to Las Vegas. I stopped twice at 520 miles. And so you're talking, you know, and I'm not saying everyone can do that, because I definitely pushed it. I did not stop when it told me. I knew it could go a little further. But you're talking insane efficiency. And it does not get efficiency like a normal truck. It gets it, you know, in between a truck and like a Model Y, right? So it's one of those things where this truck is going to, whether you like it or not, even at 320, 340 miles with or without the range extender, you know, that's what most people are going to need. They're not going to need the range extender and spend extra, what is it, 12 to 18,000, whatever the number is. This truck will really just, I think, it can become a good entry point to really make a huge impact. And yeah, and give it a couple months, this will probably be the best-selling EV truck. If not, if it might already be, if that makes sense. So, yeah, so I think that's interesting as well. So speaking of that, something I wanted to spend time on, I think hopefully Joe can come back in a minute, but something I wanted to kind of get into a little bit was Model Y prices are increasing at the end, you know, in some of the countries in Europe as well. Along with, I believe, even in the US, they said, April 1st, it's going to increase as well. But I really think that not only is Tesla doing their best to really obviously move cars right now, but you know, it's one of those things. They also had said this, I think, at the end of February, right? March 1st, they had played some pricing games as well. But what are your thoughts? I mean, we in the past, we've just seen Tesla just, you know, really take down the price and make it more, you know, more volume driven. But in this case, it's kind of the opposite. But at the same time, they're definitely trying to move volume right now. So I don't know what you think about these tactics, or if you have any thoughts on how Tesla has kind of, I would say they're kind of, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but they're kind of almost stepping into, they're no longer that young preteen. They're no longer that young, you know, kid anymore. They're now stepping into like this mid teenager and kind of almost going through puberty, it feels like. But what are your thoughts as far as you know, as they're, you know, just increasing prices, pulling a lot of levers? I mean, and now you can compound stuff like the FSD transfer, full self-driving for 3 months, free supercharging for a couple months. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? And I know you probably hit this hard on some of the other places you've been, but this is definitely something new that we've seen.
Yeah, I actually haven't talked about this point specifically very much recently, but obviously it feels like we're kind of turning the corner on just the overall direction of price cuts, which should mean that we're turning a corner on gross margins. It's hard to look at, you know, a specific market and see a few select price movements and extrapolate that to the whole company, you know, because it may or may not generalize, but this seems to be something that we're seeing more from Tesla at this point in time, which I think on the one hand is a good sign for the overall economy. On the other hand, you know, people are just saying, oh, you know, they're trying to move metal here at the end of the quarter. Well, we've seen that in the past. And instead of saying, hey, we're going to increase the prices next month, they have done price decreases in the last quarter of the thing. So even if you're trying to use the end of the quarter push as a justification to say, well, this is not a big deal. Well, we've seen that before, and this is a different type of move here at the end of this quarter than we've seen in past quarters. So I would say that is just an overall positive sign. As long as we don't hit, you know, another massive recessionary environment at any point this year, and interest rates kind of continue to stabilize and come down, then I think moving forward, that is a tailwind for demand overall, because, you know, most people make their purchasing decisions based on monthly payments, and being able to get a lower rate on their financing option is definitely going to make it easier to afford that monthly payment. You're going to have more people who are interested in buying the exact same vehicle at the exact same entry price And so that'll be big moving forward. And it just seems like we're kind of stabilizing where we're at, and that moving forward, we should be in a good place for demand. And that's before we even talk about, whatever the next generation vehicle is. We know that the company is continuing to aggressively reduce their costs. And so, gross margin should be going up at the same time that prices either stabilize or even, prices could even decrease over the course of the year, and margins could still go up. So if we can see prices increase and costs go down, then margins go up even more. And that's what we're hoping to see as investors. But either way, there's a lot of exciting things ahead for Tesla.
Yeah, that's no doubt. The crazy thing to think about is, of all the demand levers they could push, Tesla isn't even in all the markets that some of their other competition is, and that's bonkers. They're still talking about building factories, or even potentially even trying to do business in India, where you have like so many of the Japanese and even some legacy uh, other autos in that area, and they're still not able. For every headwind Tesla gets, they're not crying like a baby like some of these other companies are about, oh, we just can't, we don't know if we can, we're not going to until 2026, or you know what I mean, or whatever. Tesla's just like moving forward and still producing vehicles. If they raise prices, they'll do that. If they drop a little bit, then they'll drop the price a little bit, but they're not complaining. They're just pushing forward and going so hard in the paint, man. And it's wild to me also, thinking about their headwinds. And I mean, we're going to get into this a little later with the slides, but the fires and all of the holdback from the government and all these type of things, like how Tesla really isn't put to the forefront like how they should be. Like Rivian announced the R3 and their stock went crazy. You know what I mean? Tesla announces things and their stock goes down. And it's wild to me to see how, you know what
Sorry,
I mean?
that.
It's crazy. Like Tesla gets all this beat down all the time over these little things, where everybody else gets built up over these things. And we all know, everybody in the world knows, that Tesla is the freaking very measure that everybody is measured against. But yet nobody wants to admit how great Tesla is until they're doing that measurement. You know what I mean? Other than that, it's like, oh, Tesla shouldn't be at this valuation. They shouldn't be at this. They shouldn't be at that. But then it's like, oh, guess who's beating Tesla? It's like, what? It's wild.
Yeah, it is really interesting, because one, we all know that there's a double standard, and people are gonna, I think Tesla's gotten to the point now where if you, let's say, don't like Elon or don't like specific things, there is potentially an opportunity to go buy another car. But again, at the end of the day, people will buy the best product, and Tesla will continue to innovate and really continue to reinvent themselves at an insane clip. One thing I was thinking of, we know that so we're seeing these price changes that are happening here and there, kind of going up, again, pulling those levers. How much do you think, we know Tesla has made the announcement specifically that they're not going to announce the next generation Model Y. But my question is, if you go buy a Model Y today, it doesn't have a second row, screen, and there's certain things that, are just better now on the Model 3. Like, how much do you think is that going to potentially, and I think we've talked probably in the past about this a little bit, about people like holding out and waiting. And obviously we are maybe pigeonholed a little bit because we live and breathe Tesla right now. But I do think even the average consumer, who's going to check out the latest Teslas, are going to see like, hey, this new Model 3 is like, a little bit more, or if not way more advanced than the Model Y. Do you think that that's going to have an impact on moving the volume that Tesla has ramped to for the Model Y? Do you think there is going to be a hangover at all?
I don't think so, because I think we're in a bubble, and I think it's kind of hard to see the forest for the trees, right? Like, we're around people and we talk to people all the time. This is like you say, I mean, they sleep and breathe Tesla. But the fact is, I mean, there was people, I know people that bought Model 3s like right up until the freaking release of the updated Highland version. and they didn't care. They were just like, I'm glad I got my Model 3. And you know what I mean? Like, so I think when you're looking at the Model Y, I think there's people that are just going to buy them regardless. What you have to realize is the demographic hasn't been reached yet. We're still like less than 10%. You know what I mean? Like realistically, there's 90% of the world that has no idea. And so like there's just a whole subset of people that are just clueless about anything EVs and what they do. And I mean, you see it in all the hate comments. Like people still talk about like like just wild stuff. But it's always interesting to me how we look for all these new things and we're always on to the next thing. Like everybody couldn't wait for the Cybertruck. I mean, now the Cybertruck's here. Now everybody's talking about Juniper. Now everybody's talking about the next generation vehicle. When that comes out, people aren't going to care. They're going to be like, well, when's the van coming? You know what I mean? Like when are they going to, you know what I mean? So we just live and breathe this stuff. So we see it differently, but I don't think the widespread of the globe really cares.
Hans, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would also just point out, as far as value for money, even though the Model Y isn't as updated right now as the refresh Model 3, it is eligible for the IRA tax incentives here in the United States. So, this is going to be different for different markets. But here in the US, you get a lot more vehicle for the same dollar in the Model Y right now than you do in the refresh Model 3. And so, there's definitely going to be some people that love the refresh Model 3 and how refined it is and how incredible it is. And it is a lower price than the Model Y, but it's not that much lower. And so they'll go that direction. But then other people are going to be like, hey, I want the bigger vehicle. And that matters way more to me than the fact that it doesn't have a screen. And, we're probably a year and some change out from a refresh on the Model Y as well. So, I think that there's probably plenty of room in the market for both to sell well. And then especially when you factor in the extra attention that Tesla as a company is getting now, thanks to the Cybertruck. The more of these things get delivered, the more of them that are out on roads, the more people's hearts and minds are going to just be like opened up to the possibility of Tesla. It's like, oh, I want a vehicle by that crazy company that makes that crazy truck. And, other people are going to hate the Cybertruck and they're not going to be interested in it, but it's going to create so much attention and eyeballs that there's guaranteed to be a number of people that are brought into the story for the first time who've never, like, there are so many people who really don't know anything about Tesla at all, positive or negative. They just like, it's not on their radar. And, it's hard once you see a Cybertruck, it's hard for the company that makes that thing not to be on your radar.
Wait for the Roadster.
Yeah, it'll be it'll be really interesting to see how the next because I know Tesla still hasn't given guidance on this year, so we'll see. I mean, after Q1 they need to in their earnings call, unless there's some crazy macro headwinds that they're already seeing. But I think we'll get a good indicator of how things are. I do know that Tesla's pulling out all the stops to get owners in butts and seats into the new Model 3, because it really is a game. It really is a brand new vehicle in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to see how Tesla is. They're changing their business or their business plan and their marketing plan and their sales plan, right? Like as we're speaking, over these past couple months, that I don't think I've ever seen the company kind of like pull out the measures. Like we don't have to go into we can hit this, but like just things like this, you would just never see them do this, right? Because as you said, Joe, like we are, we passed the kind of like the people that are buying these cars right now are probably, you have the first adopters, then you have the second, maybe third wave, but really, how do you get past that third or fourth wave to really hit like even further? And here they are, just taking the Cybertruck on a campaign. Again, I don't know how far or where they're going to take this, but just basic things like this. They are not necessarily. I don't want to say competition's driving this, but as they're between these crazy growth periods, right? Between the Model Y being the best-selling car and this mass market car at $25,000, they are reinventing the wheel right now without spending hordes of hundreds of $1 million worth of cash on like these crazy marketing initiatives. We know that they're advertising, but they're utilizing their sales departments, service departments, unlike they've ever done it before. They're doing things like this. The celebrities are helping drive a lot of this stuff by prioritizing them potentially first right now. So it's just, this company continues to impress me as they navigate various headwinds. Okay, hold on. So let me just back out of that. And then I wanted to jump into this. So Hans, not to put you on the spot.
Put Hans on the spot.
Okay, let me do it. I accidentally left an old image there on the left, so ignore that. But obviously, from your show that you did with Herbert earlier this week, you guys talked a lot about how there's just more institutional investors, how that's just skyrocketing right now. There's over 15 firms diving in, hinting at a shift from retail to institutional investment. So if you could just for our show, could you just give us why is this important? What does this potentially mean for Tesla stock? And what is this even? What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, every company goes through investment cycles, and one of the major trends that you'll see in a market is large institutional investors taking the opposite side of a retail trend. And so, a lot of retail investors have been very excited recently about a lot of other names that are more sexy right now than Tesla is, because they've moved more recently than Tesla has in a positive direction. So you're looking at things like NVIDIA, you're looking at things like SMCI, all these plays that are super hot in the AI space right now. Probably people moving to things like Microsoft, or Bitcoin is going crazy like now. So you've got MicroStrategies or a Bitcoin ETF, or all these things. Like, these are kind of the cultural zeitgeist of retail investors right now. That's where the eyeballs are. And so people are trimming positions because they say, what has Tesla done for me lately? I haven't made anything. If you've been in the name for a long time now, say since 2020, you haven't really made a significant amount of money from all-time highs. You're down. If you invested around all-time highs, you're down. Or if you, even if you're up, but you just haven't seen the type of movement in the past couple of years that you wanted, and you're seeing other people make more money, you get FOMO and you want to go in that direction. And so a lot of times that's where institutions will take the opposite side. They'll be like, hey, in retail is super excited about these other frothy names, and so we're going to sell the frothy stuff and we're going to buy the stuff that's been beaten down, that retail investors are leaving. And it looks like right now they're buying Tesla, or at least a number of it's not that every institutional investor is now all in on Tesla, but there's a large cohort of them that are getting more excited about Tesla as an investment opportunity, and they're buying. And the types of people that are making these investment decisions are people who are responsible for large amounts of other people's money. And when you manage other people's money, you think about risk differently. You make decisions differently than someone who is just managing their own money and taking risk personally. And so as we see institutional ownership kind of increase in Tesla, that usually means that the volatility is actually, like, these types of investors that are coming in are not, this is not ETF. This is not like a Ross Gerber or a Gary Black or somebody like that. These are, pension funds and other people who have really long time horizons. And so they're making a decision on, hey, I want to hold this company right now for, probably 5 years, 10 years, more, endowments and those types of things. So that kind of tends to stabilize the volatility of an investment a little bit more so than the retail holders that are a little bit more finicky. And it seems like we're probably coming to the end of this overall downward cycle roughly speaking, and probably looking towards more sunny skies moving forward, because we've washed out the people who had stock to sell that really have lost faith in the name, and now we're getting investors in that are more value oriented, and that typically is kind of the end of the bubble cycle.
So let me ask you a question. On considering your thesis or what you just said, how come, like, during the run up when it was low and it was running up before it hit the trillion, how come they weren't buying in then? How come we didn't see what we're seeing now then?
We did see it from some institutional investors, and so I would say that Ron Barron is a great example of someone who got in early and is long-term oriented, and recognize those types of things. But the other thing that you have to remember is that before 2020, Tesla was not in the S&P 500. So there's a whole lot of institutional investors who use inclusion in the S&P 500 as a filter that says, if you're not in the S&P 500, I'm not going to invest in you, period. And so there's kind of a whole new cohort of institutional investors that this is the first down cycle where they feel like it's in a value territory, where it is a company that is eligible for them to even consider.
Yeah, I get that. It just seems to me like when Tesla was at the even 700, not even like the 800,000 or whatever, but when it was just a few months ago, when it was pretty high up there really wasn't a lot of pull. Instead, there was like a lot of FUD that was out there, or whatever. It seems like they've been trying to push Tesla down for this moment. That's what it seems like to me. I don't want to be wearing a tinfoil hat or anything like that, but it really seems like they've been just trying to really push it down, because all of the tailwinds and all the things that are now for them to invest were always there. Tesla was always outselling everybody. The Model Y was always on the ramp up for every country that it was entering in. The Model 3 was still selling what it was. We knew the Cybertruck was coming. Mm-hmm. Like, these are things that were always there. So it's just funny to me, not really funny, but just like ironic that now that they pushed it down enough to where they feel like, okay, let's get in there.
I want to push this over to Jeff and ask him, a question on that as well. But I would say that one thing to think about is that in, the end of 2022, when the stock really did tank down to, around that $100 mark, there was a lot of just macro sentiment was overall much more negative, which is really going to affect the appetite for buying on an institutional buyer's part. And so I think that right now we're in a different macro environment where there's a lot more money that's on the sidelines. It's actually more interested in entering into the market than we were. Because we definitely could have made the same argument. Why weren't more institutions buying at the end of 2022 when it was in incredible value territory? And so, Jeff, what do you think on that? Is that just a risk appetite environment on the part of institutional investors, or what are your thoughts around, the timing of all of that?
Well, I think in that quarter, the NASDAQ was making a low, the S&P was making a low, and there was this imminent concern of recession, and we were still in a Fed rate hike cycle. So when you put all those things together of like, rates are going up, concern of a recession, those are, you multiply those two things together, you don't buy companies that make cars, basically. Yeah. And we know Tesla does more than making cars, obviously. But even though the opportunity, and there were institutions and there were people that went in and scooped up during that time frame, but and that's one of the reasons that it doubled pretty quickly in the first quarter of the following years, that people did come in and scoop it up. But yeah, you basically had really bad macro sentiment, and you did not have the soft landing scenario on the table at the time. So I think that's what kind of held things down. And of course, there were other things happening at the time. Elon was selling. There's other things happening to damage the sentiment on the stock. And I think Tesla went through, it was in December. It was certainly the first half of January is when they did the very large price cuts. They may have done some big cuts in the end of December the following year, but yet all those things coming together, like, okay, is there concern about, the rate of sales and why are they doing this? So you had all those factors happening.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting to see the kind of a tide turning, and all of, again, as Hans was saying, and Jeff, and just as these companies are coming in, how it does make it potentially the stock, maybe, I don't know if the right word is more stable, but you have more people that are long-term potentially focused and with big, people that are managing huge amounts of cash coming in versus like retail investors who can be a little bit more volatile and seeing the stock price go up and down. So I think that this, for me as an investor, I'm more excited about that just because more people are coming to the table, not just, other people like myself who are managing their own portfolios per se. It's a lot more institutions, right, that are coming to the table. And who knows, maybe that this means that I don't want to make any predictions that this is closer towards the bottom, and hopefully, it's seen as more of like potentially a good time to really start putting some money in. So
that's a prediction.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I could just make a couple of comments. I'm a long-term holder, but definitely, I'd be a little bit concerned during this time frame and cautious just because, it depends how this quarter goes. The street is very, 1 to 4 quarter focused. And I don't know if they've baked in, the level of weakness that we may have in this first quarter. And there was even some data published this morning, just macro auto now is 85 days of inventory across, all propulsion systems, ICE, hybrid, everything. 85 days of inventory. So you have a macro auto issue that's kind of like bubbling under the surface. And then, I don't know. The street, I think, is somewhere at 460K, like cumulative. They've come down from 475, but they may not have come down enough so it depends what they report for deliveries, and it depends how that converts in terms of earnings. But if there's another earnings revision, I think there'll be some weight on the stock. Now, I'm not one to tell you, when to buy, when to, that's not it. It's more of, it's more of this. I would say there's a period of uncertainty. There's always a period of uncertainty, but there's definitely a period of uncertainty now. So yeah, as long as earnings are being revised lower, that's the street has this weighing machine on the stock, and it's not clear, and this is why it's difficult to like time in anything like a stock like this of when will they start applying value to things like the performance of FSD or Tesla's lead in bot. Like when do they even know that, Tesla has a manufacturing advantage to scaling something like a bot. So I think I would say there's a period of uncertainty. It's hard to know one way or another. Institutions could move really quickly too. They could be in at one point and 2 weeks later make a pretty big change. So I think the next month is going to be very interesting between deliveries and earnings.
Yeah, so that's why it's always good to make sure you do your own research, and also just listen to people that are experts in the field, like Jeff. Not saying that you're making a prediction, but just I think you have a lot of knowledge under the underlying data. So it's just I think that's super incredible. One thing we wanted to do was circle back to. We wanted to circle back to get your thoughts on the Cybertruck production information that's recently been released. So Cybertruck ramps up to 1,000 batteries a week. There was even a new record of 370 Cybertrucks spotted in one day. But I would love to get your thoughts on, was this your expectations? I think kind of the census between us was it's potentially right in line with where it's supposed to be, and it could be set up some pretty big things for the end of the year and how they ramp this. And then I think it was Hans you called out too that they've now 100% pretty much out of Giga Texas as well for the battery cells. So, but what are your thoughts on when you saw this earlier this week? And then I don't know if you saw the Sawyer post too about 370 Cybertrucks spotted at Giga Texas the other day.
Yeah, it looks like we're hitting a portion of the S curve now on the battery where, I think this is 50% higher than maybe 4 or 5 months ago. So we need to continue, accelerating and improving there. So that's good. Hopefully there's some stability with the recipe and everything that they're building for the cell, so the factory can just run. Because I know the cell came out and it was under where they wanted it to be from an energy density perspective. So I can imagine them trying to improve that. But they've got to do that in a way that doesn't disrupt production as much as possible. So that's great to see. The 370. You have to put them on a number. Are they at 150 a day? Are they at 200 a day now? It's hard to, when you do the drone flyovers are very helpful, and just to see the magnitude. You just don't know how many came in or came out within a day. When somebody gets sophisticated with that and how to do that, I think it would be then you'd really know the rate. So I think a magic number that they're going for is about 300 a day. That would get them to about 100,000 unit run rate. I think that's a key, 300, 325 a day. That's a key milestone for them. And I could imagine them, during this first quarter solving a series of engineering problems. They've also posted the recs for the second shift for Cybertruck. So what companies normally do is, you don't wait for the full shift to be staffed. What they may do is they may take a bottleneck area from the first shift and start running that on the second shift as soon as they get enough people. And then they can start improving the first shift's bottleneck by using a skeleton crew on the second shift, and while they staff the entire shift up. So we know they're doing that. So we know that that's going to be that'll help the numbers. And then when that full shift comes up, that'll help the numbers. And then I think they're kind of taking they're taking their CapEx approach in chunks, both from a judicious perspective of like how to spend money, but also I believe that there's going to be different revs, that they'll internally call the Cybertruck. I think this first set of CapEx that they're ramping to 125K run rate, call that recipe 1. And then I'm sure there's a new version of that Schuler machine for, the straightening for the flattening process and the conditioning of the stainless steel. I'm sure there's other new CapEx items that when they do this next chunk of CapEx, will take the COG structure down, will help improve, the velocity of the product and the yield of the product through the factory. And then they'll release that and ramp that up. And then they'll add that capacity together, and they'll probably go retrofit the initial capacity. So I think they're doing a number of things, complicated things throughout the year. That's why, I would say for the first year, I would put them somewhere in the range of 60 to 75K. And then, we'll see where they go from here. But I like this approach of the introduction. From my background, this is a controlled introduction. You've got brand new technology on the electrical side, the software side, the mechanical side, even the whole assembly side. And when you have all that new technology, when you release in a controlled manner, you're going to make the tail of that, or you're going to make the real steep portion of that ramp be so much more effective. So I do like the approach that they're doing, actually, even though I don't have my Cybertruck yet, or Joe doesn't either.
What did you configure? When did you configure
in December 20 something?
Did you order a Cyber Beast?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's probably right. They're starting to ramp those, but yeah, okay. Because otherwise, I would have been, if it's a dual motor, man, you must be on the crap list,
the naughty list.
Yeah, exactly. One other big thing that's been happening, I know some of you have either, I don't know if anyone on the show has it yet, or I think maybe one of you have experienced it, but FSD v12.3. So I'm a total in peasant phase. Like, I was part of the OG testers back in the day, but I got put in jail a couple of times. The the autopilot jail. And so I think I'm like out of that, but now my Model X is still on 11.4.9. So I have no idea what it's been like to experience this. I've been seeing, a lot of great reactions, a couple of, areas for improvement too. But this is a huge release. It seems like, from my impressions of what I've observed from other people, it does seem like it's a huge update. It's a big step forward. But what have you noticed or seen or even experienced if you have this on your Tesla yet?
I just got it last night, so I will be driving it today.
Oh, lucky. Nice.
So
yeah, go ahead.
I actually got to experience, it was 12.2, not 12.3 yet, when Bradford drove through on his, all around the country wild ride. And it was incredibly smooth, very human-like in a lot of ways. Obviously, still edge cases left to solve, but significantly more capable than 11.4.9. Could do all kinds of things that 11.4.9 never could, and definitely didn't struggle with a lot of things that were major nuisances on 11.4.9. Very exciting. The fact that, the other thing is how fast it seems like they're iterating. Elon said that, we're going to see these new releases, the next 3 of them, coming roughly every 2 weeks. And what that leads me to believe is that the training compute, like the supercomputer that's doing the training of the base model between each iteration, is actually able to do a full, they're able to run that full process every 2 weeks. And then there's going to be a whole nother QC phase on the back end of that, where they're trying to make sure that it passes all the tests and, doesn't have any issues, and it's not going to cause any safety concerns in the field as they roll that out. But seeing how long it was between when they rolled out 12.2.2 and then to 12.3 was pretty short. And then they're already talking about, there's a potential that we could see 12.3.1 this weekend. And so if they're able to keep up that pace of improvement, it's just going to be wild. I think by the end of the year, it's, obviously we're too early to tell, but if we can continue the rate of progress that we're seeing at this point in time, then we're on a very steep part of an exponential curve. And that's the most exciting thing. I think there were some safety issues that 12.2 had, and from all accounts that I've seen, basically all of those over assertiveness or overconfidence in areas that 12.2 had problems with have all been solved in 12.3. So for them to be able to fix that problem so quickly, like that's the biggest thing. They cannot massively roll out FSD v12 if it's going to increase safety risks. And so for them to be able to fix the safety risks just like that is incredibly positive for, the overall story of how fast this can progress from here to the end of the year.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jeff, were you going to say something?
No, I think I love the points that Hans brought up. The rate of improvement. It's interesting to me. Like, what does it look like now that they're on end-to-end neural nets? It'd be great. It'd be interesting if they had some sort of tech talk of like, okay, what does bug detection look like, and what does resolution look like? How do you do that? And how do you compare it to, heuristics beforehand and to now? It'd be fascinating for them to just walk through it. Is it really just pointing to new training data? And it just, I'd be fascinated to just understand that. But I think the exciting point is the rate of improvement from where we are today. I think that's going to be key. We were waiting months for releases, and it wasn't. Sometimes we were kind of taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So they got to get the feature complete. Like, they have to get all the features in, and then we need some stability level in terms of the quality and performance. But it looks like that whole loop is going to work a lot faster. And I would be out there driving here, but believe it or not, it snowed overnight here. So I'll have to figure out once the roads are clear. California and Texas are laughing.
Yeah. I have no idea. It's so sunny.
Oh man.
So clear.
I think that's valuable training data. Tesla needs that. You
Yeah.
need to get that thing out there ASAP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be
Just
out there
go
sideways.
put someone in the car right now.
I
While you
trust,
stay here.
I trust your FSD driving just as I trust all your stock tips.
Yeah, no stock tips from me.
Yeah, no, it's really
LOL.
incredible to see Tesla's releasing this V12 really because it's on the neural nets. And I think, as you guys have both mentioned, what I'm really excited about is to see the rate of improvement, because I don't think that's something on the previous versions. I don't believe that they were completely on the neural nets and just being able to train itself completely. And so this is going to be exciting. I'm really hoping that this new foundation will really help them kind of, again, push the limits and really step forward, and that it continues to make those improvements as we move forward. So yeah, it's an exciting time, I think, for Tesla, especially on full self-driving. So
Can I make one more point on that just real quick?
Yeah,
So last summer we saw Phil Dwan and Ashok Elaswamy both make presentations at the CVPR conference, and it took us a few months before they put those talks online and we could listen to them, but they were working on, at the time, the foundation of what is the V12 stack, and they were sharing the progress that they had made on that, and they were expressing a lot of excitement and confidence about what this was going to be able to do. And that later turned into what Elon demoed for us when he gave us the first preview on what version 12 was. But so to see now, we finally are getting this in the hands of customers, and we're getting to experience some of the things that they were getting a preview of back in that time. And so we're seeing when Phil and Ashok are excited about something, like, it turns into exciting customer products over the course of 9 to 12 months. And they have both expressed here recently just continued excitement about what it is that we're in for over the next 3 months, even. And so to see what they were excited. They're not the types to be as enthusiastic as Elon will be on the progress of where something's going to get to. They're much more measured about their statements, and we saw, okay, they made measured statements about what was possible. Now we see what we have today and how exciting that is. They're also making statements today about what we're going to see. And so I think that's another reason for confidence and just excitement overall, with where this is headed in the very near future. Not even like, they're talking about stuff that we should see in much less than a year, whereas in CVPR last year they were talking about things that it would take a long time for us to actually get to experience.
Yeah, it's incredible what this team is doing and how quickly they're doing it. And I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. I don't know if Karpathy would ever come back, or if he's going to come back. That could always be interesting. I know he's potentially on another hiatus or break. It was a really short marriage at OpenAI, but I think that they could really utilize someone of his caliber to come back and really help them get. I think we just need every person that can help get this over the line and really to the next level is going to be vital. But we are coming to the top of the hour. I don't know. I'm kind of going through the slides right now. Joe, I don't know. Was there anything off the top of your mind? I mean, there's just basic things like, Giga Berlin happening with the Cybertruck. I mean, this thing is just Starship launch. We had Neuralink this past week. The first person, just being able to actually have have something in their brain and being able to train and play chess and other things, and it's changing his life already because he literally is paralyzed from the shoulder all the way down. So it's just really exciting to see first Cybertruck teardown from happening as well. Yeah. I was gonna say Sandy Monroe, but I know he's in the process of tearing it down. But just lots going on right now. So I mean, I think we could, literally just go for another hour and not miss a beat. But
Yeah.
yeah, Joe, sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, I just agree with you. I mean, looking at those slides, yeah, it's just what a week, man. And that was like just what I could compile from the last week. I mean, there was stuff like weeks prior that we had missed because we were off that was like just insane. But the whole fire thing was very interesting to me. Like, what eco person sets a fire in a forest? Like I think there's something behind that bigger than eco terrorist. Like,
You want to quickly hit on that real quick?
I mean, I'd like to put that to the group. I mean, I've never experienced a freaking an environmentalist that would love to set fire to a building in a forest. That's wild to me. Like, it just seems like there's something more behind that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't claim to be able to peer into the
Yeah.
minds of people that think like that. So plead the fifth.
All
It's
right.
wild stuff.
Well, awesome. But yeah, thank you guys so much for your time this week. Hans for coming on as our special guest this week, and Jeff for joining us. When you did. So we really appreciate you guys supporting the channel. So please make sure to like, subscribe, follow this podcast. Make sure you patronize our regular hosts like Joe, Jeff, and Hans. They are all in the description or tagged on X. And I think this is like, I don't know, there's like 2,400 viewers right now on X, which is pretty insane. Like, I don't know if X's algorithm is now prioritizing video. So, but either way, it's just really, really cool to see the love coming from X. But yeah, make sure to tune in next week. We'll be back at 8 a.m. PST. And hopefully this was helpful and insightful for you. Have a great week, everyone. See ya.
Yep. Take care.
Peace.